So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Emily Kyle, and I want to introduce Neal, but I also want everybody to understand that he is somebody that I have known for probably 20 years, but we are not associated with each other. We don't share fees. We don't have any financial relationship one way or the other. I just think he's a good, ethical, excellent human being who's good at what he does. So I thought it would be great to have him here to talk a little bit about the psychology of money. So Neal's a certified financial planner, as well as a certified financial behavioral specialist and a chartered retirement planning counselor. He began his financial services career in 1983 and is the majority owner and president of Intrinsic Wealth Counsel. Neal's the CFP board ambassador for the Phoenix metropolitan area. He's the past president and chairman of the Financial Planning Association of Greater Phoenix. And in 2010, the FPA of Greater Phoenix Board of Directors nominated Neal for the Heart of Financing Financial Planning Award. His research was published in the Journal of Financial Planning, and he's spoken at national financial planning conferences. He holds a Master's of Science in personal financial planning and a certificate in financial therapy. He's got 3 kids and 5 grandkids, and he likes to hike and golf and read and do research. And as I said, Neal and I have known each other for probably 20 years, and I will never, ever forget when he came into my office. He came in with the pyramid that you see as the logo down below. Cardboard's probably the wrong word for what it's made of, but something you can pick up and hold. And inside it, as well as on the sides, talking about needs and wants, so that people can reach their goals, understanding why they have those goals and what's most important to them. And that is an image that I have kept in my head for all of these years, because I think it's a really important way when we do estate planning to help clients understand what the goals might be, as well as when we try to interact, whether it's with Neal or another financial advisor, about making sure that our estate plan is meeting up with whatever those wealth goals might be for that client. So I'm thrilled that Neal was willing to give up some time today to talk to us. And with that, I will let you take it away. And if you do have questions, by all means, you can type them in the chat or the Q&A, and we will get to them at the end. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Emily. Thank you all for being here. I hope I'll provide you some information that you will find useful and maybe a little fun. I'm, like Emily mentioned, not a techie. My nickname here in the office is Crash Gordon, because sometimes when we're working with computers, somebody says to me, "This has never happened to us before." And we actually had that happen just as we were getting ready for this webinar. So it's like, yep, been there, done that. Anyway, we'll do our best. I'm hoping what's going to happen is my notes are going to be over here, but you're seeing on this screen. But there's a couple of things we have to make sure we do for my good friend Evan at the SEC. First is the disclaimer. Intrinsic Wealth Counsel is a registered investment advisor with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. Registration as an investment advisor does not imply any certain level of skill or training, and the content of this communication has not been approved by the United States Securities Exchange Commission or by any state securities authority. This presentation is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to offer personal financial planning or investment advice, nor is it intended to offer any legal or tax advice. For legal advice, please contact Emily. For tax advice, please contact your CPA. Market data, articles, or other content that is in this presentation is believed to be generally reliable, but we can't guarantee that it will always remain true. It's sort of a, if you quote me, bake me kind of thing. Contact your CFP professional, CPA, or attorney, or other advisors to discuss your personal situation. Whew. End of that. Today's agenda. See if I can slide this out of the way a bit. So this is what I'd like to cover with you. What is money? And as we talked about in the promo, money and stress, and does money motivate or does it satisfy? Money in relationships. Money is a very funny thing, and sometimes people do some weird things with it. So we'll talk about money, the psychological, the physical, and emotional impact of money. We'll talk about money scripts And hopefully you'll find some interest there as well. And then the last item is that how much does it cost to be happy? And hopefully we can talk a little bit about what you can do to have happy money. So the first question is, what the heck is money in the first place? Is it opportunity? Is it Bitcoin? Is it the root of all evil? Or is it what you do with it that's the root of all evil? Is it a credit card? Is it a mortgage, a car loan, security? Is it your friends? Is it a tool? What do we do with money? What is it? What about you? Your earnings power. Your life insurance is money. I mean, it's not a good thing to think about because then you're worth more dead than alive kind of stuff, but it is a form of money. How do you feel about yourself and when you work? Those types of things. Is your self-image, your self-esteem wrapped up with how much money you make? If you make $100,000 a year, are you better than the Joneses? So you're more superior. Are you entitled to something? Money is also items you exchange for something of value. This is the first year I've ever experienced used cars appreciating by 30%. But used cars have appreciated this last year by a little bit over 30%, which was almost as much as real estate. And people are using their used car to trade in as a down payment with a 30% gain on the value to buy something else. Rare stamps, baseball cards, your house, any kind of other real estate. Your time. We often trade time for money and money for time. And are you making each day worth trading a day of your life for? These are things that we can consider as part of money. Funny thing, what you see in front here is from the island of Yap, and it is 8 feet tall, and it is the largest carved limestone in the world as a form of currency. The people of Yap, a fly speck of an island in the Western Pacific, learned long ago how to make money the hard way. They carved it. Yap was claimed by Spain in the late 16th century, sold to Germany in 1899, seized by Japan in 1915, and surrendered to the United States at the end of World War II. This circular limestone, the largest coin and the heaviest coin, not something you're going to put in your pocket, they would use this and put it on canoes and travel as far as 280 miles between islands when they were doing trading. The money is still used in their local community as a store of value. One of them actually sunk just before they got to shore. And so they just started remembering how much of that coin was traded. Milton Friedman called this the first form of currency and a store of value in the form of a depository, which was the precursor to the federal depository system that we currently use in the United States. This is money. So let's get back to the technical side because no one wants to kind of accumulate that kind. I mean, imagine the stone stacked up for 1 million of those, right? Money is an agreement. It's a medium of exchange. It's a store of value. It's a unit of measure. Yet we do a lot of other strange things with money, and we make it so many more things than it really is. People's desire for money is a modern derivative of the desire for food. Hungry people are less likely than satiated people to actually donate to charity. The idea that you can give with a full cup is a good example of that. If your cup is full, you're free to give. If your cup is empty, you're not quite sure you can afford to give. Don't go in front of a judge before lunch if he's going to render a verdict. Judges render harsher penalties before lunch than after lunch. So if you got to go to court, make sure your court case is in the afternoon, after we had lunch. So the concept of time and money create different mindsets. When we think about time, we think about what we're going to do, our activities. What are we going to do on the weekend kind of stuff? And sometimes when we're thinking about a particular activity on the weekend, we may have to ask ourselves, well, how much are the tickets? But we're thinking differently when we think about time-based choices. They are connected to our sense of self, who we are as individuals. And it actually promotes a focus in the areas of happiness and social relationships. And I'm going to refer to this book several times. It's called Happy Money. It was published in 2013 great book. You can probably pick it up at a low price at a bookstore. There's a couple of discount bookstores out there because it's been around for a while, or Amazon.com as well. But there is some great research in there, and I would encourage you to take a look at that book to help you understand the idea around what money is supposed to do and how you can spend money wisely to make yourself more happy. Now, when we think about choices when it relates to money, our brains switch gears and they go into this concept of a relatively cold or rational manner. There's an industry research out there called behavioral finance that has found out that people are not necessarily as rational around money as they should be. If we think about that from the economics point of view, a rational person with money is supposed to always make the very best choice to optimize the use of their money. Let me ask you something. Just think about this for yourself, because I know we can't have that conversation right now. Have you ever spent some money you regretted spending? Have you ever bought something that you were like, oh, what did I do that for? Or when you went to dinner someplace and you finished and maybe you had a drink too many and you're like, holy smokes, dinner cost that much? What did we do? Those types of things are the irrational side of the rational thinking that relates to money. So behavioral finance suggests that there's not necessarily always a rational decision, which is why people like Emily, Kile, and we get to do what we do to help people think clearly about their money and their choices. So money and stress, what, me worry? Some of you might just be too young to remember Alfred E. Newman from Mad Money, but he did coin this, whoever he was. I love the vision of it, but the idea today is money and stress is something that happens on an ongoing basis, on a daily basis in life, and that stress around money impacts how we subconsciously decide what we do with money, and it affects our relationships with money as well, and also not just my relationship with the money itself, but also your relationship with your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, your mom, your dad, everybody else. When we have clients come into the office and we're sitting with them, they're telling us what they think about their situation and their money goals. But at the same time, I'm going to hear things like, well, my mom always said, or my dad said, and all of a sudden we have more people in the room than just the two. So money and stress, it generates a lot of activity. And from that perspective, we look at it, let's see what's going on right now. No one's had any stress here in the United States over the last couple of years. Let's see, pandemic hasn't happened since 1918. A market recovery after the shortest correction in history. Then we had this experience of the supply chain shortage. We had the governments sending out stimulus. I don't know, it was to the tune of about $9 trillion. Now we have this thing called inflation that hasn't been around since 1979, 80, 81, and 82, when prime rate hit 21%, and 30-year mortgages, 30-year treasuries were yielding 17%, and mortgages were 13 to 16%. Interest rates over this period ended up being negative in actually real terms, and we ended up with an interest rate for mortgages at 30-year mortgages at 2.25%. Today, they're 5.5%. Real estate and used car prices appreciated, and oh yeah, we have a war going on, an invasion. So lastly, the interest rates rose at the fastest pace in terms of affecting the bond markets in the last 30 to 40 years. So we've experienced some market declines between 10 and 25%, and some individual equities are down 40 to 50 to 60 to 70%. So are we experiencing any stress? Nah, not any at all. Blake Mason did a survey back in 2015, and the average investor spends about 475 hours a year thinking about and worrying about money. If we were translating this to work days, it'd be 8 hours a day. It'd be 59 days out of the year. And 10% of investors spend 2 to 3 hours a day thinking and worrying about money. That's 730 to 1,000 hours a year. And this is all related to money and stress and the pursuit of the money so we can go buy food and do other things. Allianz did a study on love, family, and money studies. 76% of Americans get stressed out about planning for their future, and 62% of the Americans get stressed out about the best way to cover their financial expenses on a current basis. What we look at, as Emily does and I do, we look at it from the planning perspective, and we find that even in the estate planning arena, there are people that want to make sure that they, A, are not a burden to their children, B, that they're not going to run out of money before they run out of life. And if they do run out of money before they run out of life, how do they qualify for other services so that they can take care of their health care needs, which become the greatest issue for people when they're, I don't know, less young, say 65, 70, 75, 80, and health becomes, well, we'll put it this way, you lose your superpowers. So every year, the American Psychological Association does a study on money and stress, and with the exception of this last year with the pandemic, they find that there are two things that are the reason for divorce: infidelity and financial infidelity. Now, infidelity is pretty easy to understand. Financial infidelity? What's this? Is this real? This is the point at which spouses are keeping financial secrets from their spouses. On one situation I'm aware of, a husband lost his job, was so ashamed of losing his job, he went and started gambling, thinking he'd make up his money. And every day he got up, he was going to, as if he was going to work. And sometimes he'd come home with money and there'd be bills paid and all those kinds of things. He ended up forging her signature, the spouse's signature, for a home equity credit line. And she didn't find out that all of this was happening until somebody showed up to foreclose on the home. This particular couple, unfortunately, are no longer married because they're not going to survive this kind of damaging situation and the dishonesty associated with it. 31% of the people surveyed in the study indicated that the financial infidelity, keeping these financial secrets, is worse than the physical infidelity. In a separate survey, 86% of Americans from the CFP board study said that experiencing financial stress on a regular basis is something that happens to, well, 86% of us. Now, naturally, this is a CFP board, and they say that the cure for those kinds of stresses is having a comprehensive written financial plan. From my personal experience and 35 years in practice, it's true. People are less stressed once they have plans in place, and they are less stressed and far grateful when they go in and see Emily and get their estate planning done as well. It just solves so many issues and so many concerns that are underneath lying in us that sometimes can keep us awake at night. And what we're trying to do is make sure that every day you get to wake up in the morning, go, hot diggity dog, I get to have another fun day, and you've got your stuff organized and you understand where you are and you know what's going to happen before and after your death. So this is my shameless promotion for those of you that don't have a financial plan. Please go get one. Hire a certified financial planning professional. Those that do work with financial planners are 71% of them are more confident, more optimistic, they're at ease, they feel more secure, they feel like they have a great understanding of their money issues, their goals, and everything else, and they're more hopeful than those individuals that don't work with a financial planner and don't have a comprehensive financial plan. This is also true in terms of research done in terms of individuals who have not done their wills yet or their estate planning. Individuals who don't do their will, one of their arguments is, well, if I do the will, then I'm going to die. So if I don't do the will, I won't die. So one of the things that we found out in the research is that those individuals that actually did do their estate planning work and they got it all finished and done along with their financial planning, they actually started developing behaviors that promoted health, because now that they figured out that they weren't going to die, they wanted to live longer and they wanted to be healthier. So it actually is a form of a financial therapy when you get these things finished. So having a plan, how much is it? It helps you determine how much is enough to buy the time you want to do, have, and be your ideal self or selves. Planning helps you develop healthy money habits. It aligns your spending with your value systems. It honors both your current and future self. And from a legacy point of view, there's so much more benefits available to this because you can start gifting with a full cup for family and children and charities and those types of things. Our relationship with money. When I first heard this term, I said, what? My relationship with money, I make it, I spend it, I save it. What's the big deal? But when we start looking at the behaviors that people have around money, we find out that there's some underlying issues that psychologists have done some research on. And that's what I'd like to kind of share with you next. Dr. David Kruger authored a book, and this is another old book, but there's some good stuff in there, called The Secret Language of Money. And one of the things he identified is that when we give money an emotional value, Money is money. If you don't attach any emotion to it, then it's just something to trade with. But when we attach emotional value to it, we are asking money to do things it was really never designed to do. Emily, have you ever had a client tell you that if Billy doesn't behave, I'm going to cut him out of the will?
All the time.
So we start to use money to manipulate other people's behavior. We start to use money as punishment or reward or incentive. And we have to be very careful, because the reason we're doing that is there's some kind of emotion behind it. Nobody wants to give money. And this is a very good example of someone thinking about it a little bit differently. We had a client years ago whose son was an addict. And he was not going to get clean. He was not going to get sober. Well, if this couple died together, the way their original estate plan was set up, this 20-year-old son was about to inherit $1 million in cash. What would $1 million do for an addict? That's a situation where you've thought about your process. No. Let's set that money in trust. Let's set that money over here to help this person get sober and get back to a meaningful life. Money magnifies and reveals and exaggerates character traits. It exaggerates who we hope to be, who we imagine we would be if we had this much money, and the emotions infused with that. We also have money issues that relate to the idea of what we might become. That means somebody might say, I don't want to be wealthy because I'm going to become like those wealthy people who are a certain word and think they're entitled and unkind. So therefore, we don't want that money. And sometimes we regret that we spent so much money that we now can't do what we would have done or could have done had we saved that money appropriately. So it magnifies these emotions and character traits associated with it. We don't just earn money, spend it, save it, we woo it. We flirt with it, we crave it, we scorn it, we punish and reward ourselves and others with it. You know, back in high school and in college, I was always jealous of the guy that had the really cool car, because he always seemed to have the really good dates. And here I'm with a car that's just a jalopy, and I'm thinking, I can't ask somebody out. I got this jalopy for a car. I'm not even sure it's going to make it to and from the date place. So we think about money in terms of what it would do and what it was and how it represents who we are as individuals. So it's an interesting area that it gets infused with emotions. The funny thing about money is wanting money makes life worse, and having money makes life better. People who choose to develop their lives in the pursuit of the American dream, defined as money, fame, and popularity, suffer more psychological distress, anxiety, depression, and narcissism than do people who pursue their inner guides for self-actualization. This is true even when they've achieved those goals. They're not necessarily happier. So one of the things that people think about, and you'll see in the money scripts coming up, is the idea that we believe that if we just had this much more money, I'd be happy. And that's not necessarily true. Just thinking about wealth can push us away from the kinds of behavior that promotes happiness, such as playing nicely with others. Just being reminded of wealth can propel people to distance themselves from others and undermining happiness. They actually want to spend more time making money because they're thinking about money so much. And so that we get down to some of the research. Kathleen Bose and Roy Baumeister, back in November of 2009, did a research paper on the psychology, the psychological, the symbolic power of money. Counting money makes people feel stronger. Recollections of having spent money make people feel weaker. This is why people hate budgets and looking at their expenses. They look back through the last year's expenses and they go, oh my God, we spent that much money on this. And so it makes them feel weaker because they're regretting the money that they no longer have because they exchanged it for this particular thing that they did. And now they feel less. They just feel less. That's the best I can describe it as. Thinking about money made physical pain less acute. Thoughts of losing money made physical pain worse. In other words, the belief that a paper loss in the markets because we're experiencing paper losses right now. We haven't sold things at a loss because the markets for portfolios. Is actually the fear of the loss of $1 is 2 to 2.5 times more painful than the joy of making $1. So when we have market declines and stress associated with that, if you have fibromyalgia, if you have any arthritis, an injury, and you're looking at the markets and you're letting yourself think about money that way, the physical pain you're experiencing is going to be higher. And what I would tell you is don't watch financial pornography. Stay away from that and not worry about the markets because they will come back. Now, remember my disclaimer, this is a conversation. The thought, let's see here, money becomes a substitute for relationships. Thoughts of losing money is so pervasive that our self-esteem and our self-image and whether or not we are loved or lovable can be measurable in terms of money. And in a separate survey, a significant loss of money or the perceived significant loss of money can cause a medical term called broken heart syndrome. And people actually die from broken heart syndrome. Thoughts and reminders of money make people feel less helpful. Thoughts of money stimulates a desire for solitary activities and less intimacy. Thinking about money motivates individuals to work more and socialize less. So if my focus is on accumulating capital, I'm going to focus on making money. I'm going to be looking forward to earning as much as I can. And eventually you're going to look at this person, whomever you're looking at with this particular goal in mind, and you're going to find out that they're working 50 to 60 to 70 hours a week. And they are now joined what's called the hedonic treadmill and the pursuit of money. Those individuals are going to spend a great deal more time in the pursuit of that and less time thinking about their health, thinking about their relationships, thinking about their family, their friends, and everything else because, quote, they're always working. That is not where somebody's going to be. And you can just think back to the old story of Ebenezer Scrooge in terms of his revelation after the ghost visited. The greater the ego, the more the likely the individual, mostly men, consistently lost more money on bad financial decisions and an emotional need to be right and reaffirm the self-image. That's an interesting one because women are far more rational about these things. Men, because they're investing the money and they're taking care of stuff, they want to be the man kind of thing. And they tend to make bad decisions at high levels of stress. And they want to continue that decision because they don't want to admit they're wrong. It's kind of the same thing as when husband and wife are in the car and husband says, no, I know how to get there. And then they say, but Dr. Google told us we should turn left. They don't listen. Men. The primary effect of the idea of money is to promote general feelings of strength, efficacy, and confidence, and these feelings act as a buffer against social rejection and physical pain. So interesting stuff about the impact of money on a subconscious level, and everybody does it to different degrees. So I'm going to talk about self-scripts. Now, in psychology, they have this thing called life scripts. It's things we learn about ourselves and behaviors we decide to adopt for ourselves because they seem to make sense for us. We have personality styles. There's extroverts, there's introverts, there's type A, there's people pleasers, there's Republicans, Democrats, Republicans. There are spenders, there are savers, there are over and underachievers. They're all part of this script that we've developed of ourselves. And some people's self-image is impacted by who influenced them, and others are impacted by their experiences, whether they were good, bad, different. And so these are scripts that we have. And the next kind of script that has been developed is called money scripts. Money scripts are belief systems that we have about ourselves in relationship with money. And Dr. Brad and Ted Klontz have identified 10 popular and unhealthy money scripts that people have. And I want to skip back here for just a moment. So, no, we're good with that. Okay. Here's 10 different scripts that people tell themselves in one way or the other. Money will make things better. If I only had another $1 million, I'd be happy. Money is bad. I don't want to make a lot of money. There's too much trouble with money. I don't deserve money. My self-image, my self-worth, my self-esteem says, I am not a good person, so I don't deserve money. Even if they are a nun. I wouldn't say priest. I deserve to spend money. There will be never enough money. There will always be enough money. Money is unimportant. Money will give me meaning. If I had that $1 million, I'm going to be more meaningful than something else. Oh, it's not nice or polite to talk about money. And if you are good, if you're just a good person and you do what you love, the money will follow. The universe will supply everything you need. These are different scripts that they've done enough research on to evidence that people believe these things at one level or another. So you can ask yourself, do any of these things resonate with you? And you will be starting to identify some of the scripts you might have subconsciously in your belief system around money. There are 4 types of money scripts. Those that are money avoidant, those that believe money is status, those that worship money, and those that are money vigilant. Money avoidance, I don't understand money. They think it's all Greek to me, and they don't understand it. They don't want to understand it. They don't understand investments. They don't understand savings. They actually refuse to understand it. They are avoidant of money. They fear talking about money. And they believe also that all wealthy people are greedy. People got that way because they cheated, not because they earned it. Maybe they inherited it, but they didn't, they're greedy. Poor people are inherently more pure than the wealthy people. Sort of the biblical term that the poor shall inherit, the meek shall inherit the earth kind of thing. It's always better to give than to receive. So a money avoidant person would have a difficulty receiving a very nice gift because they don't feel that they deserve it. And it'd be better for them to give them something versus them receiving. Interesting thing, there's a lot of research out about lottery winners. You would think somebody who wins $50 million and takes cash and ends up with $25 million in the bank, that they are set for life, even if they are 75 years of age, or 50 or 40. But individuals that are money avoidant, the amount of wealth that they inherit is so incongruent with who they believe themselves to be as individuals that 70% of them become broke within 7 years. So these are money avoidant behaviors. Money status. We want to compare ourselves to everybody. We want to keep up with the Joneses. We have a fear of missing out. We don't want to be left behind. We have to have the newest Apple phone because everyone else has the newest Apple phone in our group. And anything in our group that we've identified with as an emotional value, I belong to this group, we're going to spend money because it creates the status, even when we can't afford it. Money status people believe that wealthy people are happier than they could be. Money worship. Money is power. Money is freedom. And people that make $1 million, or they say, my goal is to be a millionaire, and they say, if I could just make this much more, or if we just had this much money, we would finally be able to be happy. The problem with somebody with money worship is if they actually get to $1 million, when they get there, they're going to look around and they're going to kind of survey the land and go, oh, no, I got to have $2 million. And then they continue on the hedonic treadmill to make $2 million. We've had some clients come to us and they've been working for a very long time. They want to retire. They don't think they can. They look around. They say, I think I'm going to need another $1 million to make it. And then we tell them, and I've actually had this a couple times, where they could have retired 5 years earlier from a job they hate. But their money worship, along with some of their money vigilance, created this wealth situation, but they couldn't see themselves retiring. So it can be detrimental to your wealth to worship money. Money vigilant is the fourth of these. Now, people who are money vigilant, they actually track, they plan, they protect, they accumulate capital, they budget, they set goals, they comparison shop. Most of them file their tax returns on time. Most of them will use advisors, even if they're do-it-yourselfers. They'll want to get second opinions. They'll talk to counsel. It's sort of the idea that they know what they're good at, they know what they're not good at, and they recognize those needs and services. The money vigilant people value those things, and they're far healthier. Now, you can have the extreme of a money vigilant person. Some money vigilant persons become hoarders, and they hoard money, and they spend nothing because they have to make sure that they've taken care of their money at that level. And there are stories of individuals that have developed and literally died with hundreds of millions of dollars and lived very poorly. There was one story out of New York, two brothers that lived in a high-rise apartment. They paid for the apartment, they lived there, and in their estate, they found all kinds of hoarding, books, garbage, everything. And their net worth was somewhere in the area between $16 and $20 million, and they died spending nothing. And it's just literally that they went to the extreme of this. Everything in life requires balance, and every one of us have some of each of these scripts in our system. It's just whether or not we abuse it or we score so high that that becomes the focus of our behavior, and it's hurting us from a different perspective. So you can find out what your money scripts are. This is our only commercial. Go to intrinsicwealthcouncil.com under our Intrinsic Cafe, under resources. You can go there. There'll be a little tab there that says money scripts. You can click on the button. You can fill out your own survey on that. It will spit out a report to tell you how you score on these four different scripts. It's kind of fun to look at and consider. And what's interesting, they've already validated this, so it's kind of fun to learn about these behaviors and the belief systems behind it, because then you can start actually looking back in time and say, what did mom and dad teach me about money? What did I learn when I got fired from that job? What did I learn when I got that first amount of money, or if I won something, those types of things. And it will tell you more about your behaviors if you're thinking about how to gain control of your life and your money over time. Happy money, finally someplace fun. How much does happiness cost on an annual basis? Is it $75,000 to $100,000 a year, 100 to 125, 150 to 200? Do you have to have $1 million a year to spend to really be happy? Well, research has shown that individuals and couples that earn that live off of $75,000 to $100,000 a year they're this happy. And then somebody who makes $1 million a year is this much more happy. It's a very small difference between the two. And in fact, some of those most wealthiest people I've mentioned before, they're not happy at all, because most of the time they spend hunting to protect their money because they don't want to lose it. And they're wrapped up with their self-image, and their money equals them. But most people, when they start diversifying their lives, end up being pretty darn happy between $75,000 and $100,000 a year. There's not much incremental difference between those that spend a lot more or make a lot more or have a lot more. So happy money and spending wisely, happiness. Think of things that you can do. You can buy experiences. Experiences inoculate you against buyer's remorse. So years ago, when we read this, we started wanting to take our grandkids and do experiences versus buying them the next toy that's going to end up in the garbage can. We started spending time taking people to dinner, and that was our form of cooking. I'm not a very good chef, so rather than have somebody at the house, we say, pick a restaurant, we'll have some fun together, and we're cooking you dinner at this particular restaurant. Plus, we have a lot of fun. We don't have to do any cleanup and everything else, and we can enjoy the conversation with friends and family. So buying experiences is one way to inoculate yourself against buyer's remorse when you buy a thing that just accumulates and ends up in the garage. And it also has a way for you to be able to savor memories from those fun experiences. And that increases your level of happiness. Make it a treat. If we went to dinner every night, not only would I be completely overweight, far beyond what I am now, because right now I'm just too short from my weight, It's too much of a good thing becomes no thing at all. And as a result, you end up in a situation where ice cream just isn't any fun anymore. One of my first jobs in high school was working at Jack in the Box, and we could eat all the fries we wanted. Well, after a while, I was sick of fries. I didn't even want to see them. I liked them, but not anymore. So make it a treat and make sure that's something that you do on a not a regular basis, but something you really enjoy and you look forward to. And then set the date out in advance. So this is the date we're going to do something. And then that becomes something you can look forward to. And also, it's a nice little treat to create a new experience. Buy time. Remember, doing it yourself doesn't necessarily mean you're saving money. I learned that the hard way when I tried to do some plumbing. So I prefer to pay other people to save me time so I can do something else, yard work or whatever, plumber, any of those types of things. Tax returns. I don't do my tax returns, and I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to draft my documents. I'm going to trust somebody like Emily. And before you buy things, think about how the purchase will change the way you use your time. You want to protect your time. So when you start buying things that consume your time, make sure that the consumption of the time it consumes is something you enjoy doing. Be careful to make sure that the things you buy don't inadvertently own you. Years ago, we had a client with a cabin, and the first 5 or 6 years, they loved going up to Pine, spent a lot of time up there, having a great time, everything else. And as life got busy, the kids got older and all kinds of stuff, they found that the only times they went up to the cabin was up to do maintenance and repair work. So by the time they got home on Sunday night, they're tired. They've actually worked all weekend after they worked all week. And the cabin became more of an anchor, a drudge, than it was a joy. So they sold the cabin, and years later, they ended up buying a new cabin when they had the time of it to actually go enjoy the cabin. But for a while, the cabin owned them. Time affluence is a potent predictor of life satisfaction. Pay now, consume later. Delaying consumption allows spenders to reap the pleasures of anticipation. People are less prone to overspend when they experience the pain of paying up front. If you want to make sure that you are happy with your estate planning, pay the full fee up front. You will never question the purchase of it. You'll get stuff done, and it's out of the way, and you don't have to worry about any other bills. That's the same thing is true. There was research done on cosmetic surgery and cosmetic dentistry. They found that patients that paid the full fee up front actually healed better than those who had to make monthly payments. Because every time they made the monthly payment, they were asking themselves, oh, is this just right? Did this work out the way it did? And it actually created more stress for them, so that they heal better if they paid up front. It also has the other thing that happens is that when you're buying something like we paid for our cruise that we took to Alaska, we got to start looking forward to it, and we knew that money was out of the way. So we started enjoying the anticipation of looking forward to our trip, getting ready for it, looking up stuff, getting some new clothes, that kind of thing, and you'll have more fun. The more you focus on the money and the wealth, the less you're capable of savoring. So when you're prepaying, don't focus on the money going out the door. Focus on the anticipation of the enjoyment you're going to have by prepaying that particular experience. Invest in others. Spending on others provides a bigger happiness boost than spending on yourself. And this is a great example where you can start. The test that they did in Happy Money is they gave people money and said, you can either spend this all on yourself or spend it on somebody else. And then they repeated this process several times, and they found those people that actually spent the money on something else, somebody else making a gift, buying something for somebody else, they actually got more joy and pleasure than those people that bought whatever it was for themselves. And as a result, one of the things you can do is invest in others and spend money on somebody else than you. That way you're spending wisely. Now, be careful while investing in others. Be careful that the behavior or the reward or the money you are spending is not punishing them, and you're incentivizing the appropriate thing. My parents paid for A's. If I got an A, I got $5. It changed the focus of my effort to get A's. I was more concerned with getting an A versus learning the material or finding things that I really enjoy studying. It redirects that and discourages intrinsic motivation for individuals to discover what they're most interested in, what they have most fun at, which is what they'll end up studying and learning the best. So we recommend don't pay kids for A's, but do reward them. After they've gotten the A, after they've gotten the B plus or whatever it is, recognize that in the terms of the mindset of saying, you know, Ty, it took a great deal of effort for you to get that A minus. And I just want you to know, really appreciate how hard you worked. Let's go get some ice cream. Let's go get a boba. Let's go do something, or way to go. And maybe there's a cash reward, but it's not a consistent cash reward. You don't want the expectation attached to it. At behavior A, money shows up. You want to avoid that. So if you've got kids, don't pay them for A's. Don't incentivize them with that. Don't promise them a car if they graduate valedictorian, those types of things. You're going to change the focus of their learning in the process. Well, so we are happiest when we're in service to someone or some purpose greater than ourselves. It's been an honor and a privilege to talk to you about these types of things. I hope you found some stuff that's of interest. And I'm going to go to this question mark. I'm going to quickly slide over here for my good friend Evan at the SEC and say, don't forget this disclaimer, and then I'll come back to questions. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So there is one question. I think it's an outstanding question. Two parts, so I'll read both of the parts to you. It says, what should a financial plan look like, or what question should it answer? Should it be a roadmap for how to take projected resources and make the most of them during retirement, or something else?
Well, yes. So a comprehensive financial plan includes all areas of your life, all of your finances, your wills, your estate planning documents. Emily and I have been collaborating for years. We review documents. We talk about the changes and things that clients might want. But you can go to the website called letsmakeaplan.org to learn more about the comprehensive financial planning and those types of things. But I will tell you from our perspective, a comprehensive financial plan includes a review of all of your insurances. So auto, home, liability, health, disability, long-term care, life insurance, tax returns, your wills, your estate planning documents, your advance directives. It's a review of your financial assets, how much your house is worth, what do you owe, those types of things, interest rates, if you have credit card debt, that kind of stuff. It includes building out a financial cash flow statement so we understand how much free cash flow you have or don't have. Hopefully you're spending less than you make, and where your capital base is and how it's invested. And then the investment portfolio gets reviewed to understand whether you're appropriately allocated in your investments to strategize and build the portfolio that you need to achieve the particular goals that you want, whether it's in retirement or before retirement. You know, it's likely that people will own more than one car in their lifetime. And as a result, you have to plan for the auto replacement. You have to plan for emergencies. You have to plan for the kids' education. And if a child goes to graduate school, will you help them with that? Are they on their own? Will you have your children actually have to pay a little bit of the college expense so they have some skin in the game for themselves and they can understand what it means to get a college degree? Versus just saying, here's all the money, kid, go get good grades and make sure you get a degree, and let's do it under 6 years kind of thing. So the planning process is one that reviews all of those things and takes into consideration your personal value systems, where you want to go, what you want to do, and how you want to spend money. Remember, everything you're going to spend is a form of buying time for your life. And people have particular goals. I still want to go back to school and get my PhD. So I actually have that budgeted when I have the time to do it. And so as a result, that's in my schedule, that's in my financial plan. And in the planning process, we're trying to map all those things out. And from a planning perspective, it's an ongoing thing. Individuals that work with financial advisors and planners usually put together a system support for them to maintain their financial plans. Just like going to the doctor or the dentist for your health checkups and your teeth cleanings, it has to be maintained. Emily, I don't know how many years it is before you review estate planning documents with clients, but every couple of years tax laws change and you got to maintain the documents. Otherwise they become quite stale and unfortunately sometimes they become completely useless. So just that in the same format, planning is something that has to be kept alive.
Yeah, and to remark on something you said before about oftentimes people are fearful of doing an estate plan or a financial plan because somehow that will have a bad outcome. I tell people when we do estate planning, I think of it as your umbrella. Once you have your umbrella in your car, you don't, when it rains, you have the umbrella. And how often does it rain in Arizona? Well, not very frequently, but when it does, you want to have the umbrella with you.
You bet.
So that's what your estate plan is. We might not have to use it for a really long time, but it's there when the bad thing happens and somebody needs to start making some decisions for you.
Yeah, and the other thing that people have this anxiety, this is part of the money stress that relates to it, is the anxiety associated with coming in and disclosing your finances, disclosing your belief system around how you want to leave money. All of those things are very stressful. And the individual who chooses their planner or their legal counsel, the first goal you want to do when you're interviewing is make sure there's a good fit. You want to make sure that when you're visiting with Emily, she has a great bedside manner. She's fabulous, but you may not like her. I wouldn't believe that, but that's a possibility, just like people may not like me. And as a result, you want to have somebody that's a good fit. Find out their background, their history, their story. Did they like to hike? Did they do things? Make sure that the connection is there on an emotional level, because the better that connection, the higher the probability you will have a long-term successful relationship.
Well, this was outstanding. We don't have any other questions that I see. I so appreciate your time, Neal. I always appreciate collaborating with you. And for those of you who attended, I hope that you found it as useful as I did. And we'll look forward to seeing as many of you as would like to join us next month for our next presentation. So with that, everybody stay well, stay cool, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.